James Carver sat alone in his office at Carver's Haven, the hum of Bayview's nightlife filtering through the thick glass window behind him. The city sprawled out below, a patchwork of flickering lights and shadowed streets, but his eyes were fixed on the glow of his laptop screen, where a single comment on the restaurant's review page stared back at him like a dare. Food's unreal 5 stars, but word is the boss stepped on next to get here. Makes you wonder. James leaned closer, the faint crease between his brows deepening as he reread it, the words sinking into him like a splinter he couldn't pull out. At 42, he'd built Carver's Haven from a hole in the wall, kitchen into Bayview's crown jewel, a place where every dish told a story, where the air carried the scent of rosemary and garlic like a promise. But tonight, that promise felt shaky. Scrolled through more reviews, his fingers tapping a restless rhythm on the desk. Best meal of my life, one said. Service on point, another gushed. Sales were steady hell, better than steady, and his staff sent him polished reports every week, all smiles and numbers. Yet something gnawed at him, a quiet itch he couldn't scratch. James pushed the laptop back, running a hand through his. Dark hair, the strands flecked with gray he hadn't noticed until lately. Carver's Haven was his legacy, born from sleepless nights and a stubborn dream to make food that brought people together. Families laughing over pasta, couples sharing dessert under candlelight. But these whispers, the comment, the rumors kept creeping in like static cutting through a clean track. Was he missing something? Had he drifted too far from the heart of it all? He stood, pacing to the window, the cool glass pressing against his palm as he looked down at the street. Rain streaked the pavement, blurring the neon signs into a watercolor mess, and his mind drifted back to the early days, sweating over stoves, scribbling recipes on napkins, building a team he swore he'd never let down. Back then, he'd known. Every face, every story. Now, he sat up here, trusting spreadsheets and second-hand updates while the restaurant pulsed below him. The reviews were gold, sure. But what about the stuff folks didn't type out? What about the whispers they saved for empty booths or late-night chats? James had always prided himself on staying connected hell. He'd worked the line himself. When a cook called out sick, but lately, he felt like a stranger in his own house. That splinter dug deeper, and he turned back to his desk, snatching his phone and dialing Sophie Grant, his assistant who'd been with him since the doors first opened. She picked up quick, her voice sharp despite the late hour. "James, what's up? Everything okay?" He grinned faintly. She always knew when something was off. "Yeah, Soph, I'm good," he said, his tone dropping low, serious. "But I need you to keep something quiet. Clear my schedule tomorrow night, no meetings, no calls, nothing. And don't tell the crew I'm coming in." There was a pause. Then Sophie's voice came back, curious but steady. "You're pulling a stealth move, aren't you? What's going on?" "I'm going undercover," James said, already moving toward the closet in the corner. "Gonna hit the Haven as a regular, see what's really cooking down there. They don't need to know it's me, just some dude off the street." Sophie let out a soft laugh. "You sure? Last time you did this, you ended up washing dishes till midnight." James chuckled, pulling out a gray hoodie with frayed cuffs, the kind he'd worn before the suits took over his wardrobe. "That's the point, fam. I need the raw deal, no filters, no polish. You in?" She sighed, but he could hear the smile in it. "Always. I'll shuffle things, keep it tight. Anything else?" James tugged the hoodie over his head, swapping his tailored jacket for the soft, warm cotton. "Just keep your phone close," he said. "Might need you to dig something up if this goes sideways." He hung up, stepping back to check himself in the mirror by the door. The hoodie hung loose. The jeans he grabbed were faded at the knees, and he swapped his polished loafers for a pair of scuffed sneakers. He grabbed a baseball cap from the shelf, pulling it low over his eyes. No gelled hair, no fancy watch. Just James, unplugged. The guy staring back didn't look like the James Carver plastered on food blogs or shaking hands at galas. Perfect. He smirked, grabbing his keys, not the ones to his sleek Audi parked downstairs, but to an old Honda he kept for low-key runs. He slipped out of the office, nodding to the night security guard on his way to the elevator. "Catch you later." "Man," he said, his voice casual, like he was just stepping out for air. The guard waved back, none the wiser. Down in the garage, James slid into the Honda, the vinyl seats creaking under him, the faint smell of gas and dust a far cry from the leather of his usual ride. He fired up the engine, the rumble uneven but steady, and pulled out into the rain-slicked streets of Bayview, his mind already on Carver's Haven. The drive was short, the city blurring past in streaks of wet light as James navigated the familiar route. Carver's Haven loomed ahead, its warm glow cutting through the drizzle. A two-story brick building with big windows and a sign in elegant cursive that promised comfort and flavor. He pulled into a side lot a block away, packing the Honda under a flickering street lamp, far from the valet stand where his usual crowd rolled up in Teslas and Benzes. He killed the engine, leaned back, and took it in. The place looked alive, shadows moving behind the glass, the faint hum of laughter and clinking plates spilling out every time the door swung open. His chest tightened with a mix of pride and nerves. This was his baby, but tonight, he wasn't the boss. He was just some guy looking for a meal. James adjusted his cap, the brim low enough to shadow his face, and stepped out into the rain, the damp soaking into his sneakers as he crossed the street. The air smelled of wet pavement and oregano, a combo that hit him like a memory of opening night. He pushed through the front door, the bell above jingling soft, and the warmth of the restaurant wrapped around him: roasted garlic, fresh bread, a hint of wine. The place was buzzing. Servers darted between tables with trays of steaming pasta. Couples leaned close over flickering candles. Families swapped bites of tiramisu like it was a game. James felt a flicker of a smile, but it faded fast. Something felt off, a tension he couldn't pin down, like a note out of tune in a song he knew by heart. He slid into a booth near the back, the vinyl creaking under him as he settled in, his eyes scanning the room. No one spared him a second. Glance, just another customer in the dinner rush, lost in the shuffle. A cheerful waitress bounced over, her blonde ponytail swinging, her smile practiced but warm. "Good evening," she chirped, setting a coaster on the table. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" James kept his voice low, casual, his cap tipped to hide his eyes. "Water's fine," he said. "And, give me a minute with the menu." She nodded, scribbling on her pad, and hustled off, leaving him alone with the hum of the restaurant. James opened the menu, a leather-bound thing he'd designed himself. Every dish a piece of his soul, but he wasn't reading it. His focus drifted, catching snippets of chatter around him. A couple laughing over a shared plate of ravioli, a server griping about a late order under her breath. This was his shot to hear the unfiltered truth, to see Carver's Haven through the eyes of the people who kept it alive. He leaned back, letting the noise wash over him, ready to soak it all in. Whatever was simmering beneath the surface, he'd find it tonight. And then what? He didn't know yet, but walking away wasn't an option. James Carver settled into the booth at Carver's Haven, the vinyl cool against his back as he cradled the glass of water the waitress had dropped off. The restaurant pulsed around him, plates clinked, voices overlapped in a steady hum, and the rich aroma of garlic and thyme drifted from the kitchen like a warm handshake. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the streetlights outside into soft halos, but inside, the glow of pendant lamps bathed the room in a cozy amber light. James tugged his cap lower, the brim shadowing his eyes as he scanned the space. Servers darted between tables with trays of fettuccine and glasses of red wine. their steps quick but practiced. Couples leaned close, sharing quiet laughs over candlelit plates, while a family near the front swapped bites of cheesecake, their chatter bright and easy. On the surface, it was everything he built this place to be: alive, thriving, a haven. But that itch, that splinter from the online comment, still dug at him. He set the glass down, pretending to flip through the menu he'd memorized years ago. Every dish, every tweak, every late-night tweak he'd scribbled into being. His ears tuned to the room instead, catching the rhythm beneath the buzz. A server near the bar muttered to another, her voice low but sharp. "Boss doesn't care as long as the numbers look good." James frowned, his fingers tightening on the menu's edge. He'd always made a point to check in weekly meetings, open door policy. But had he missed something? The words stung, a quiet jab he couldn't shake. He glanced at the kitchen doors swinging open, a glimpse of steam and steel, and wondered what else was simmering out of sight. The waitress swung by again, her ponytail bouncing as she flashed. That practiced smile. "Ready the order?" she asked, pen poised over her pad. James kept his voice casual, his cap low. Gimme the house special," he said, picking the first thing that came to mind, a rosemary chicken dish he perfected a decade back. "Great choice," she chirped, jotting it down before hustling off into the crowd. James leaned back, letting his shoulders relax, ready to sink into the role of just another customer. This was his chance to hear the raw truth, no polished reports, no filtered smiles, just the heartbeat of Carver's Haven, straight from the source. Then, just as he started to settle, voices cut through the noise, low, hushed, urgent from the booth directly behind him. Two boys, their tones sharp with something that wasn't just kid stuff. James tilted his head slightly, keeping his eyes on the menu, but his focus locked onto their words. "You think he's even here tonight?" The first voice whispered, high and anxious, like he was new to sneaking around. "I don't know," the second replied, sharper, more sure. "Mom said this is his spot. She's sure he comes here all the time." James's ears perked up, his pulse ticking a little faster. Who were they talking about? He stayed still, his fingers tracing the menu's edge, playing it cool while his mind raced. "What if we get caught?" The first boy asked, his voice trembling now. "We're not even supposed to be here." "We won't get caught," the second snapped, his tone hard, like he was used to taking charge. "We just gotta figure out who he is." James frowned, the words tugging at him. Kids being curious, maybe Bayview had its share of local celebs. Chefs who'd hit it big on TV, but there was an edge to their voices, a weight that didn't fit some fanboy chase. He shifted slightly, trying to catch more without turning his head, his breath shallow as he listened. "Mom said it's his fault everything went wrong." The second boy went on, his voice dropping lower, bitter. "She said if it weren't for him, we wouldn't be scraping by like this." James stiffened, his heart thudding against his ribs. His fault. The words landed like a punch. Too close. Too pointed. He forced himself to stay calm, his hands gripping the menu tighter, the paper crinkling under his fingers. Who could they mean? His first thought was to brush it off, kids exaggerating, picking up some warped story from their mom. But the rawness in their tones, the way they spat it out, made his gut twist. This wasn't gossip. This was personal. What if he doesn't even care? The first boy whispered, softer now, like he was scared to hear the answer. "Like, if we tell him?" "I don't know," the second replied, his voice hardening again. "But I want to see him. I want to see the guy who made us lose everything." James's stomach churned, a cold chill creeping down his spine. Lose everything. The words hit too hard, echoing that splinter from the review stepped on necks. To get here, were they talking about him? It didn't add up. He built Carver's Haven on sweat and grit, not dirty moves. Sure, He'd made tough calls, fired folks who couldn't cut it, haggled suppliers down to the bone. But nothing. That would tank a family like this, would it? The waitress swung back, breaking his focus as she set the steaming plate of rosemary chicken in front of him. "Here you go, enjoy," she said, her brightness jarring against the storm brewing in his head. James nodded, barely glancing at the food. "Thanks," he muttered, his voice tight. She hustled off, and he leaned to the side, straining to catch more from the boys without tipping his hand. "Mom said he ruined her life," the second boy muttered, his voice thick with anger. "That he took everything from her, everything she worked for. Do you think he'd even listen?" The first whispered, quieter now. "I don't know," the second shot back, "but I want to look him in the eye." James felt the air shift, heavy and sharp, like a blade hanging over him. This wasn't about some random guy. They were talking about someone they blamed for their mom's downfall, someone they'd tracked to his restaurant. And the way they said it, with that mix of rage and hurt, sent a shiver through him. War. They talking about him? He'd always run his business clean, or so he thought. But the past was a foggy thing, full of late nights and hard choices he hadn't always second-guessed. Had he stepped on someone without knowing? Pushed them out in the rush to build his dream. Their voices dropped lower, too faint to catch, and James's frustration spiked. He couldn't just sit here, picking at his chicken while this gnawed at him. He had to know who were they after, and why did it feel so damn personal? Confronting them straight up was risky. If they were talking about him, blowing his cover could turn this into a scene he wasn't ready for. But staying quiet, letting it fester, he couldn't do that either. He took a deep breath, glancing over his shoulder, quick and subtle. Two boys, no older than 13 or 14, one with curly hair spilling out from a hoodie, the other with a baseball cap pulled low, both hunched over their table like they were plotting a heist. Their eyes darted around, nervous, like they expected to get busted any second. James's mind raced. Should he flag the waitress? Ask if she'd seen them before? Follow them when they bolted? Or just turn around and ask who they were hunting for? Before he could settle on a move, the boy in the hoodie leaned closer to his buddy, his voice a fierce whisper. "We just gotta wait a little longer," he said. "If he's here, we'll know. Mom said he wouldn't hide not him." James's breath caught, the words slicing through him like a challenge. Wouldn't hide. It felt aimed, loaded, like they knew more than they were letting on. His pulse hammered, a mix of dread and curiosity twisting tight in his chest. He turned back to his plate, the chicken untouched, steam curling up into the air. What had he done to their mom? And why did they sound so damn sure he was the guy they were after? James didn't have answers, not yet, but one thing was clear. This quiet little undercover trip had just flipped into something bigger, something he couldn't walk away from. He pushed the plate aside, his appetite gone, and leaned back, eyes flicking to the boys' booth. Whatever they were chasing, whoever they blamed, he'd find out tonight, even if it meant staring down a past he didn't know he'd left behind. James Carver sat rigid in his booth at Carver's Haven, the untouched plate of rosemary chicken growing cold in front of him, steam fading into the warm air. The restaurant buzzed on laughter from a nearby table, the clink of wine glasses, the faint sizzle of the kitchen, but it all blurred into static against the voices behind him. Noah and Liam, the two boys in the next booth, whispered with a mix of fury and fear that pinned James to his seat. Mom said he wouldn't hide. Noah had hissed, his tone sharp as a blade, and those words looped in James's head, cutting deeper each time. His hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles whitening under the strain. Who were they after? And why did it feel like a spotlight was creeping closer to him with every word? The boys' voices dropped again, too low to catch. They're hushed, tones swallowed by the restaurant's hum. James's pulse thudded in his ears, a steady drumbeat drowning out the chatter around him. He couldn't just sit here, stewing in the dark while their accusations, his fault, ruined her life, took everything hung over him like a guillotine. He'd come to Carver's Haven for the truth, and now it was staring him down, raw and unfiltered, through the mouths of two kids he didn't even know. His gut churned part dread, part resolve. He had to act, had to know, even if it meant ripping open something he'd buried without realizing. He took a slow breath, steadying himself, and slid out of the booth, his sneakers silent against the tile. The waitress swung by just as he stood, her ponytail bouncing as she eyed his untouched plate. "Everything okay with the food?" she asked, her smile faltering. James waved her off, keeping his voice low. "Yeah, it's good, just need a sec." She nodded, uncertain, and hustled off, leaving him clear to move. He adjusted his cap, the brim low over his eyes, and turned toward the boys' booth, his heart hammering like it was trying to break free. This was it, no more guessing. No. More hiding behind the menu dot. The boys sat hunched over their table, heads close, a half-eaten basket of breadsticks between them. Noah, the older one with curly hair spilling out from his hoodie, leaned forward, his voice a fierce whisper. Liam, smaller, his cap pulled tight over his face, fidgeted with a napkin, his shoulders tense. James stepped closer, hands in his pockets, to keep them steady, and cleared his throat soft, just enough to get their attention. "Hey," he said, his tone gentle, easy, like he was asking about the weather. "Couldn't help but notice you two seem a little on edge. Everything all right?" Their heads snapped up, eyes wide, caught off guard. Noah straightened fast, his face hardening, green eyes narrowing like he'd been waiting for a fight. "We're fine," he said, his voice sharp, defensive, a wall slamming down between them. Liam shrank back a little, his hands twisting the napkin tighter, but he didn't look away. James nodded, pretending not to clock the edge in Noah's tone, and kept his stance loose. "Good to hear," he said, pausing, then testing the water. "Just thought, well, you mentioned looking for someone earlier. You need help finding." "Might know who you're after." The boys swapped a quick glance, a silent signal passing between them. Noah's jaw tightened, his eyes boring into James like he was sizing him up. "Why do you care?" he asked, his tone dripping with suspicion, daring James to push further. James hesitated, his mind racing, how to play this without tipping his hand. He couldn't just blurt out who he was. Not yet, not if they were hunting him. He went careful, measured. "Just figured I could lend a hand," he said, shrugging. "If it's someone who hangs around here, I might have seen him." Noah leaned forward, his gaze sharpening, studying James's face like he was piecing together a puzzle. Then, slow like a light flicking on, his expression shifted shock, then anger flashing across it. "Wait a second," he said, his voice rising, cutting through the restaurant's hum. You look familiar." James's heart sank, a cold sweat prickling his neck. He forced a small laugh, playing it off. "Yeah, a lot of folks say that. Guess I got one of those faces." But Noah wasn't buying it. He shook his head, his eyes blazing now. "No, you're him. You're James Carver." Liam gasped, his cap slipping back as he gaped at James, his face paling. "Are you serious? Is it really him?" The air in the room thickened, every sound fading as James felt the floor tilt under him. No point dodging now, they clocked him, and the fury in Noah's stare said this wasn't some fanboy moment. He exhaled slow, pulling off his cap, and running a hand through his hair, his cover blown wide open. "Yeah," he said quietly, meeting their eyes. "I'm James Carver, but how do you know me?" Noah shot to his feet, his fists clenched at his sides, his voice trembling with rage. "Because of what you did to our mom," he snapped, loud enough that a few heads turned from nearby tables. Liam stood too, slower, his eyes wide but wary. like he wasn't sure whether to bolt or back his brother up. James blinked, the words hitting him like a slap. "Your mom?" he said, his voice faltering. "I'm sorry, but I don't even—" "Yes, you do." Noah cut him off, stepping closer, his green eyes burning. "Lena Harper, remember her? She worked for you, gave you everything, and you stole it all." The name slammed into James like a freight train. Lena Harper. His mind reeled, flashing back years, a flood of images spilling out. Lena in the kitchen, her auburn hair tied back, her hands flying over cutting boards, her voice bright with ideas. She'd been his sous chef in the early days, a spark of talent who'd helped shape Carver's Haven into what it was. But then she'd left, sudden and quiet, no explanation, just gone. He'd barely thought about her since, too caught up in the grind to wonder why. "Lena," he said slowly, the name heavy on his tongue. "She worked here, yeah. But stole from her? What are you talking about?" Noah's face twisted, his voice rising. "Don't act like you don't know. She helped build this place. Those dishes everyone loves? Half of them were hers. And you took them, claimed them as yours, made sure she couldn't get a job anywhere after she left. She told us everything." Liam nodded, quieter but firm. "Mom said you were jealous, couldn't handle her shining too bright." James felt like he'd been gut-punched, his breath shallow as he tried to piece it together. "That's not true," he said, his voice shaking. I didn't steal anything. She was part of the team, sure, but I didn't. It is true," Noah shouted, his fists trembling now. "You ruined her life. You ruined our lives. She's stuck working some dead-end job now, barely scraping by, all because of you." The restaurant went quiet, heads turning, eyes locking on the scene. James felt exposed, the weight of their words crashing over him like a wave. He raised his hands, palms out, trying to calm the storm. "Listen," he said, his voice low but firm. "I don't know what Lena thinks happened, but I swear, I didn't mean to hurt her. I need to hear this from her. Where's your mom? Can I talk to her?" Noah glared, his chest heaving, but Liam spoke up, his voice small. "She's not here, she's home. But she doesn't want to see you." James nodded, his mind spinning, resolve hardening through the shock. "If what she told you is true, I need to know," he said. "Please tell me where I can find her. I'll go to her." The boys swapped a wary glance, Noah's anger clashing with Liam's uncertainty. Finally, Noah crossed his arms, his voice cold. "Fine. 214 Elm Street, apartment 6B, but don't expect her to forgive you." James memorized the address, his heart heavy but steady. "Thank you," he said, meeting their eyes. "I don't know what went down back then, but I'll find out, I promise." Noah scoffed, turning away, but Liam lingered, his gaze softer, searching. James grabbed his cap, shoving it back on, and headed for the door, the rain hitting him hard as he stepped outside. The Honda was a blur through the drizzle as he climbed in, his hands shaking on the wheel. Elm Street wasn't far, just a few miles, but it felt like a lifetime away. The drive was quiet, the wipers slapping a steady rhythm against the windshield as Bayview's lights streaked past. 214 Elm Street loomed up fast, a weathered apartment building, paint peeling off the bricks, the porch light flickering like it was on its last legs. James parked, the rain soaking his hoodie as he crossed the cracked sidewalk. He buzzed 6B, his breath fogging in the cold, and waited. The door creaked open slow, and Noah stood there, his face guarded. "You came," he said, surprise cutting through his distrust. James nodded. "I need to understand. Where's your mom?" Noah hesitated, then stepped aside. "Living room." James walked in, the small space hitting him hard faded furniture, family photos on the walls, a faint floral scent battling the damp. And there she was, Lena Harper, sitting on a worn couch, the TV's glow catching the gray in her once vivid auburn hair. She looked up, her eyes narrowing, shock and resentment flashing across her face. "James Carver," she said, her voice cold as ice. "Never thought you'd show your face here." James stopped, his throat tight. "Lena," he said softly. "I didn't know it was you, not till the boys told me. They said I hurt you bad. Did I?" Her lips pressed into a thin line, her arms crossing tight over her chest. "You don't remember, do you?" she said, bitter. "Of course not, people like you never do." James stepped closer, his voice breaking. "I'm not here to fight. I don't remember doing anything to wreck your life. Please, tell me what happened." Lena leaned back, her eyes hard. "Short version? You took my work. All those dishes that put your name on the map, most were mine. I trusted you, thought you were helping me grow, but you used me. And when I called you out, you made sure I couldn't work anywhere else." James's stomach dropped, his mind scrambling. "Lena, that's not how I saw it," he said, his voice trembling. "You were key I never claimed your stuff as mine. And blacklisting you? I'd never. You did," she cut in, her voice rising, shaking with years of pent-up hurt. "I tried every restaurant in this city, nothing. They all shut me out like I was poison. I had to quit the industry. James, now I'm stuck, barely getting by because of you." The room went silent, her words a hammer against his chest. James stood there, reeling, guilt and confusion crashing together. He hadn't known, hadn't seen it, but that didn't mean it wasn't true. "I didn't know," he said finally. Quiet. "I swear, Lena, if I'd realized, I'd have done something." She laughed, a brittle sound. "Too late for that." James glanced at Noah and Liam hovering in the hallway. Their eyes locked on him and felt a spark ignite through the fog. "It's not," he said, his voice firm now. "I can't fix the past, but I can try to make it right. Lena, you're an incredible chef. If you're willing, I want you back at Carver's Haven. Co-head chef, full credit, whatever you need." Her eyes widened, vulnerability breaking through her anger, but she hardened fast. "You think a job fixes this?" She snapped. "No," James said, shaking his head. "It's not about fixing. It's about giving you what you should have had all along. I can't erase what happened, but I can start here." Lena stared at him, her emotions warring hurt, doubt, a flicker of something softer. "I don't know if I can trust you," she said, her voice low. James nodded, stepping back. "Take your time. But I mean, and I'm sorry, Lena. Truly." He turned to leave, Noah's voice stopping him cold. "You'd better not be lying," the boy said, less hostile now. James met his gaze. "I'm not," he said, and walked out into the rain, the weight of the truth heavy but clear. He had work to do. The rain had slowed to a faint drizzle by the time James Carver pulled away from Lena Harper's apartment, the Honda's wipers swiping lazily across the windshield. Bayview's streets shimmered under the streetlights, wet and quiet. But inside the car, his mind was anything but still. Lena's words, "You took my work, made sure I couldn't work anywhere else," echoed like a drumbeat, each one heavier than the last. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, the sting of guilt mixing with a fog of confusion. He hadn't known, hadn't seen how his choices years ago had ricocheted through her life. But ignorance wasn't an excuse. Noah's glare, Liam's wary hope, Lena's brittle laugh, they burned into him, a call he couldn't ignore. He'd walked into Carver's Haven tonight looking for the truth, and now he had it, raw and jagged. The question was what to do with it. He didn't. Go home. The Honda rolled back to Carver's Haven, the restaurant's warm glow cutting through the damp night like a beacon. James parked out front this time, no more hiding in the shadows, and stepped inside, the bell jingling soft as the last of the dinner crowd trickled out. The staff barely glanced his way. too busy wiping tables and stacking chairs. But he caught the faint tension in their movements, like they'd felt the ripple from his clash with the boys. He headed upstairs to his office, the familiar creak of the stairs grounding him as he sank into his chair, the weight of the night settling over him like a wet coat. He pulled out his phone, dialing Sophie Grant before he could second-guess himself. "James?" Sophie's voice came through, sharp with concern. "It's late, you okay?" He leaned back, staring at the ceiling, the amber light from the desk lamp casting long shadows. "Not really, Soph," he said, his voice low, rough. "Ran into something tonight, something big. Need you to clear my next few weeks. I'm staying at the Haven till this is right." A pause, then her tone softened. "What happened?" James exhaled slow, the story spilling out Lena, the boys, the accusations, the guilt he couldn't shake. "I messed up back then," he said. "Didn't see it till now. Gotta fix it." Sophie didn't miss a beat. "What's the play?" she asked, keys already clicking in the background. "Start with Lena Harper," James said, his resolve hardening. "Dig up what you can where she worked after she left, what went down. And get me Marcus Reed on the line tomorrow. He'll know the old crew, might have some answers." "Got it," Sophie said, her voice steady. "Anything else?" James glanced out the window, the restaurant below winding down. "Yeah, keep this quiet. Don't want the staff spooked till I figure it out." He hung up, the silence settling in, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was purpose. By morning, James was back, ditching the hoodie for a plain button-up, his cap swapped for a clean shave. No more undercover, he was here to work, to face it head-on. The restaurant opened slow, the brunch crowd trickling in, and he moved through. Sleeves rolled up, shadowing the servers, checking the kitchen, his eyes sharp for cracks he'd missed. The staff noticed, exchanging quick looks. Bosses hear too much, but he kept it low-key, asking questions, listening more than talking. Sophie called at noon, her voice crisp. "Marcus is free this afternoon 2:00 at his spot. And Lena, she applied to half a dozen places after leaving you. No hires, no callbacks. Word was she'd burned bridges, but no one's clear on why." James frowned, the pieces jagged in his head. "Thanks, Soph. Keep digging." He grabbed his keys, heading to meet Marcus Reed, an old friend from the Bayview food scene who'd seen it all, chef turned consultant, sharp as a knife and twice as blunt. Marcus's office was a cramped loft above his consultancy, papers stacked high, the air thick with coffee and ink. He greeted James with a firm handshake, his gray beard twitching with a grin. "I heard you're staring trouble at the Haven," he said, leaning back in his chair. "What's up?" James sat, cutting straight to it. "Lena Harper? You remember her?" Marcus's grin faded, his eyes narrowing. "Yeah, damn good chef. Worked with you back in the day, right?" "Then she just vanished." James nodded, his throat tight. "Her kids showed up last night, say I stole her recipes, tanked her career. Lena says I blacklisted her. I don't remember it like that, but..." Marcus raised a hand, cutting him off. "You didn't blacklist her. Not outright. But I heard whispers back then. After she left, folks said she'd clashed with you, got labeled a troublemaker. Number. Proof. Just talk, but it stuck. Kitchens don't hire risks." James's stomach sank, the truth sharper than he'd expected. "I didn't start those whispers," he said, his voice low. "But I didn't stop 'em either." Marcus shrugged, blunt as ever. "You were climbing fast," James' eyes on the prize. "Maybe you didn't see her Fallon." James leaned forward, his hands clasped tight. "I need to make it right. She's too good to be sidelined. I want her back. Co-head chef, full credit. How do I fix this?" Marcus studied him, then nodded slow. "Get her story out, tell the world what she did for you. And mean it, she smell bullshit a mile." Away. James didn't waste time. Back at Carver's Haven, he called Lena, his voice steady despite the nerves. "Lena, it's James," he said when she picked up, her silence heavy on the line. "I meant what I said. I want you back. Co-head chef, your name on everything you created. I'm sorry I didn't see it then, but I see it now." A long pause, then her voice, guarded. "Why should I believe you?" "You don't have to," he said. "Just come see. Tomorrow, noon. Bring the boys if you want." She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either, just hung up, leaving him with a flicker of hope. The next day, Lena walked in, Noah and Liam trailing her, their eyes wary but curious. The staff froze as James stepped forward, his voice carrying across the quiet dining room. "Everyone, this is Lena Harper. She helped build this place. Gave us half the menu, you know. I didn't give her the credit she deserved back then. And that's on me. She's co-head chef, now full say, full respect." Whispers rippled through the crew, but no one argued, not with James's eyes locked on them, steady and sure. Lena stood stiff, her auburn hair streaked with gray catching the light, her expression unreadable. "You're serious?" she asked. "Low. Dead serious," he said. "Your call." She nodded slow, a crack in her armor, and followed him to the kitchen. James laid it out, her role, her freedom, a draft press release he'd written, naming her as the unsung force behind Carver's Classics. "This goes out tomorrow," he said, handing it to her. "Your story, not just mine." Lena read it, her hands trembling faintly, then looked up, her eyes glistening but hard. "I'll try it," she said. "But this doesn't erase anything." James nodded. "I know. It's a start." Weeks blurred into action. Lena took the reins slow, her hands finding their rhythm on the line, chopping, tasting, tweaking with a fire James hadn't seen in years. Noah and Liam hung around, their distrust easing as they watched her work. Liam even cracking a shy smile when James slipped him a fresh cannoli. James pushed a taste of Haven day-free samples of Lena's dishes, opened to Bayview, packing the place with locals who raved online. Lena's back best food yet. Sales spiked, the vibe shifted warmer, realer. Some old staff balked. Too much change, one grumbled, but James held firm. "She's part of this now. Deal or walk." Two walked. The rest stayed, adapting. One night, James caught Lena by the stove, a faint smile on her lips as she plated a dish, her old herb-crusted salmon, reborn. "What's funny?" he asked, leaning against the counter. She glanced at him, her smile growing. "Just thinking, never saw myself back here, especially with you." James chuckled, a sound lighter than he'd felt in weeks. "Me neither. Glad you're here. That makes it whole." She nodded, thoughtful. "Not perfect, but it's something." James watched her work, the kitchen humming around them, and felt the splinter finally start to loosen, not gone, but quieter. A year had passed since that rainy night, and James Carver stood outside Carver's Haven, the late afternoon sun dipping low over Bayview, casting a warm golden wash across the brick facade. The air carried a crisp edge, the first hint of fall, and the restaurant's windows glowed with that familiar amber light. Spilling out onto the sidewalk, where a small crowd lingered, locals snapping pics of the new chalkboard sign touting Mina's Autumn Specials. James slid his hands into the pockets of his jacket, a faint smile tugging at his lips as he watched a family pile out of a car, laughing as they headed inside. The place hummed alive, steady, different now, and for the first time in years, he felt like he was standing on solid ground. He pushed through the door, the bell jingling soft, and the familiar rush hit him: roasted garlic, fresh basil, the clatter of plates weaving through the buzz of voices. The dining room was packed, tables full of couples sharing wine, friends splitting desserts, a kid in a high chair smearing sauce across his face while his parents grinned. James caught Noah Harper near the hostess stand, clipboard in hand, directing. A new server with a confidence that belied his 15 years. "Keep the bread coming, table 6 likes extras," Noah said, his voice firm but easy, then spotted James and broke into a grin. "Hey, boss man didn't know you were dropping in." James chuckled, clapping Noah on the shoulder. "Gotta keep you sharp, kid. How's it running?" Noah nodded, proud. "Smooth, busier than last month. Lena's new lamb dish? Folks can't get enough." James glanced toward the kitchen, where Lena Harper moved like a conductor. Auburn hair tied back, gray streaks catching the light as she plated orders with a precision he'd almost forgotten. She looked up, meeting his eyes for a beat, and gave a small nod. Not warm, not yet, but steady. He nodded back, the weight of their shared history lighter now, worn smooth by months of work. The restaurant had changed since Lena's return more than he'd expected. Sales were up 25%. Reviews glowed with praise for their dynamic duo menu, blending James's classics with Lena's bold twists. Noah and Liam were fixtures, now Liam perched at a corner table, sketching on a napkin between bites of tiramisu. His shy smile peeking out when James slipped him an extra fork. The staff had settled into the new rhythm too, a mix of old hands and fresh faces who'd bought into the vision. A place where everyone cooks, servers, customers mattered. James drifted toward the bar, leaning against it as he watched Lena call out an order, a voice cutting through the kitchen's chaos with a fire that felt like home. He'd stayed in Bayview, longer than planned months turning into a year pouring. Himself into Carver's Haven, not just to fix it, but to rebuild it right. The taste of Haven Day had been the spark, but the real shift came slow, Lena taking the helm. Her dishes reclaiming their place, James stepping back to let her shine. They'd fought at first, old wounds flaring over recipes, credit, trust, but they'd found a groove, a partnership carved out of grit and time. He pulled out his phone, dialing Sophie Grant as the restaurant pulsed around him. The noise a comfort now. "James." Sophie answered, her voice crisp over the line. "Bayview still got you hooked?" He grinned, leaning against the bar. "Yeah. Soph, this place is singing now. Lena's killing it. Kids are good. Numbers are up. Time to take this on the road." She laughed soft. "Knew you'd pull it off. What's next?" James's eyes traced the room, Lena plating, Noah directing, Liam sketching. "We got 3 more spots, Portland, Seattle, Denver. Same deal. Going quiet. See the truth. Build it better. But this time, we start clean, no ghosts." "Smart," Sophie said, keys clicking. "I'll pull the files when you moving?" "Next month," James said, his gaze settling on Lena. "Gotta wrap things here first." He hung up, slipping the phone back in his pocket, and drifted toward the kitchen, the heat and steam wrapping around him as he stepped inside. Lena glanced over, wiping her hands on her apron, a faint smirk playing on her lips. "What's with the stare?" she asked, her tone dry but lighter than it had been in months. James shrugged, grinning. "Just thinking, you make this place whole again. Didn't see that coming a year ago." She paused, her smirk softening. "Neither did I. It's not perfect, but it's something." He nodded, the quiet between them easy now, a truce forged through shared stoves and late nights. "You're good here?" he asked. Lena tilted her head, considering. "Yeah, for now. Noah and Liam like it. Keeps them out of trouble." James glanced at the boys through the pass, Noah barking orders, Liam doodling, and felt a warmth settle in his chest. "They're tough kids," he said. "You raised them right." Lena's eyes softened, just a flicker. Then she turned back to the stove. "Get out of my kitchen. Carver, I got work." James laughed, stepping out as the restaurant buzzed on, the rhythm steady and true. He'd come here a year ago chasing a hunch, stumbled into a past he hadn't faced, and now it was more than a business. It was a promise kept, a second chance carved out of mistakes he hadn't known he'd made. He slipped outside, the cool air hitting his face as he looked back at Carver's Haven, the sign glowing against the dusk. Portland was next, he'd. Going quiet again, cap low, ears open, but this time, he'd carry Bayview with him, a blueprint for doing it right. James Carver's journey ain't just a chef's tale. It's a raw cut of what happens when you face the mess you didn't know you left behind. He starts with a hunch, a whisper that his dream's gone off key, and dives in, hoodie on, to hear the truth straight from the source. That's the first lesson. You don't fix what you don't see, and seeing takes guts stepping out of the office into the fray. Lena and her boys hit him with a past he buried, not 'cause he meant to, but 'cause he was too busy building to look back. He could have walked away, brushed it off as her grudge, but he didn't. He stayed, owned it, made it right. That's the heart here, knowing you can't undo yesterday, but you can damn well build a better tomorrow. The story's soul is in the rebuild. Lena's fire back in the kitchen, Noah and Liam finding their place, James learning that success ain't just his name on a sign. It's human as hell, showing how one choice, good or bad, ripples out, and how owning it can pull folks back together. James's climb started with ambition, sure, but it's the fall he didn't see that shaped him. Lena's loss, the boys' anger, the Haven's cracks. The lesson? Don't let the grind blind you. Lift up the ones who lift you, or you're just stacking bricks on sand. Carver's Haven went from a solo act to a team play, and that's the gold. Real legacy ain't built alone. This ain't just a yarn to spin. It's a mirror for anybody running a gig, raising a crew, or chasing a dream. You gotta show up, face the ugly, and make it mean something. Not 'cause it's clean, but 'cause it's real. That's why we're dropping these dailies on legacy stories, to light that spark, to share stories that hit hard and stick with you. Dig James turning his past into a win? Want to hear more about folks facing down their ghosts, rebuilding what's broken, crafting legacies that last? Hit that subscribe button on Legacy Stories. Join the crew. Drop your thoughts. Spread it to your people. We're here to keep it coming, straight and true, every time. Thanks for rolling with us. Catch you on the next one, where the stakes get real and the heart runs deep.